A 10-minute journey through the milestones of human technological development. 3.3 million years ago, the earliest tools before the dawn of humanity, the seeds of technology had already begun to sprout. Near Lake Turkana in Kenya, sharp stone flakes were discovered, possibly used as knives by our ancestors. Larger and shaped stones may have been used as hammers or anvils. These tools date back to 3.3 million years ago and may have been made by early human ancestors such as Australopithecus. 1 million years ago, the discovery of fire, the exact time when humans began using fire, remains a mystery. However, around 1 million years ago, and possibly as early as 1.5 million years ago, evidence of burned materials was found in caves inhabited by Homo erectus. 20,000 to 15,000 years ago, the Neolithic Revolution, the Neolithic era, brought significant technological breakthroughs for humanity. Hunting and gathering gradually gave way to agriculture, and people began to gather in larger communities. Clay was used to make pottery and bricks. Textiles became the primary material for clothing, and even the invention of the wheel might trace back to this period. 6000 BC, irrigation. The earliest irrigation systems appeared almost simultaneously in the Tigris and Euphrates River valleys in Mesopotamia and the Nile Valley in Egypt. Irrigation required a great deal of labor, leading to the birth of higher levels of social organization. 4000 BC, the sailboat. The first sailboats appeared on the Nile, capable of swift travel but only with the wind. When faced with headwinds, sails had to be lowered, and oars were used for rowing. 1200 BC, iron. Around this time, iron began to replace bronze as the primary metal material. Iron was more abundant than copper and tin, allowing more people to use metal tools. 7th century AD, block printing. Block printing was invented during the Tang Dynasty and became widely used in the mid to late Tang Dynasty. By the reign of Emperor Renzong of the Song Dynasty, Baisheng invented movable type printing, marking the birth of movable type printing about 400 years earlier than Johannes Gutenberg's lead movable type printing in Germany. 850 AD, gunpowder. Chinese alchemists invented gunpowder while searching for an elixir of immortality. Initially, gunpowder was used to propel rockets attached to arrows. Knowledge of gunpowder reached Europe in the 13th century. 950 AD, the windmill. Nearly 5,000 years after the advent of the sailboat, humanity first harnessed wind energy to power mills. The earliest windmills appeared in Persia, featuring a horizontal structure with blades mounted on a vertical axis. Later windmills used in Europe were vertical. It is speculated that windmills may have been independently invented in Persia and Europe. 1040 Fred, the compass. The first clear reference to the use of a magnetic compass was made in a Chinese book completed in 1044. The book describes how soldiers determined direction using a fish-shaped magnetized iron piece floating in a bowl of water when the sky was overcast and stars were not visible. 1250 to 1300 AD, the mechanical clock. Although hourglasses and water clocks had existed for centuries, the first true mechanical clock appeared in Europe in the late 13th century and was used in churches to record the timing of rituals. 1765 AD, the steam engine. James Watt improved Newcomen's steam engine by adding a condenser that recondensed steam into liquid water. This condenser was separate from the cylinder driving the piston, greatly improving efficiency and becoming one of the most important inventions of the Industrial Revolution. 1804 AD, the railroad. British engineer Richard Trevithick improved Watt's steam engine and applied it to transportation. He built the first railway locomotive at a steelworks in Wales. 1807 AD, the steamboat. Robert Fulton applied the steam engine to water transportation, and his steamboat, the Clermont, successfully completed a voyage, taking only 32 hours to travel upstream from New York City to Albany, a journey that would have taken 4 days by sailboat. 1826 AD, photography. In the early 1820s, Niepce became interested in using light-sensitive solutions to replicate lithographs onto glass, zinc, and tin plates, eventually capturing the world's first known photograph in a camera obscura, showing part of his home's courtyard. 1831 AD, the reaper. Harvesting crops had always been labor-intensive work until Cyrus McCormick invented the mechanical reaper, significantly changing agricultural production. Although the earliest versions had mechanical issues, later improved reapers eventually spread worldwide. 1844 AD, the telegraph. Samuel Morse was a successful painter, but in the 1830s, he became deeply interested in the telegraph and patented a telegraph prototype in 1837. In 1844, he sent the first message through the first long-distance telegraph line, which connected Washington, D.C. to Baltimore. The message was "What hath God wrought?" 1876 AD, the telephone building on the telegraph. Humanity took a step further into voice communication. On March 10, 1876, Alexander Graham Bell made the first telephone call, instructing his assistant, Tom Watson, to "Come here, Watson, I want to see you," marking the birth of the telephone. 1876 AD, the internal combustion engine. German engineer Nikolaus Otto invented an internal combustion engine that, unlike steam engines, used fuel combustion to drive pistons, powering machinery. This engine was later used to drive cars. 1879 AD, the light bulb. After thousands of experiments, American inventor Thomas Edison finally made a carbon filament bulb burn for 13.5 hours. Edison and his team also worked on an electrical distribution system for lighting homes and businesses. In 1882, Edison's Electric Light Company opened the first power plant. 1885 AD, the automobile. Improvements to the internal combustion engine made it smaller and more efficient. Carl Benz used a single-cylinder engine to build the first modern car, a three-wheeled vehicle. However, it wasn't until 1888 that the car gained commercial attention when Carl's wife, Bertha, drove it to her mother's house without her husband's knowledge, a journey of 64 miles. 1901 AD, radio. Since 1894, Guglielmo Marconi had been experimenting with transmitting radio signals over increasing distances. In 1901, he successfully transmitted the Morse code letter S from Cornwall across the Atlantic to Newfoundland, shocking the world. 1903 AD, the airplane. On December 17, 1903, Orville Wright made the first airplane flight near Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, flying 120 feet in 12 seconds. By the afternoon, his brother Wilbur had flown the same plane a distance of 850 feet in 59 seconds, marking the birth of aviation. 1926 AD, rocket. In the mid-1920s, Robert Goddard completed the first test flight of a liquid-fueled rocket at his aunt's farm in Auburn, Massachusetts. The rocket traveled 12.5 meters in the air. 1927 AD, television. After the development of radio, the transmission of images was the natural next step. Philo T. Farnsworth, in his teenage years, began to believe that mechanical systems could not scan and assemble images multiple times per second. Only electronic systems could achieve this. In 1922, at the age of 16, Farnsworth came up with a plan for such a system. However, it wasn't until 1927 that he invented the first electronic television transmission device. 1937 AD, computer. John Atanasoff, a mathematician and physicist at Iowa State University, designed the first electronic digital computer. He proposed using binary numbers, with data stored in capacitors. In 1939, he and his student Clifford Berry began constructing the Atanasoff-Berry computer. 1942 AD, nuclear energy. As part of the Manhattan Project, which aimed to build the first atomic bomb, a team of physicists led by Enrico Fermi created the first self-sustaining chain reaction under the stands of a football field at the University of Chicago on December 2, 1942. This reaction was achieved using uranium, marking a significant milestone in nuclear energy. 1947 AD, transistor. In 1947, engineers John Bardeen, Walter Brattain, and William Shockley at Bell Labs publicly demonstrated the transistor, an electronic component capable of controlling, amplifying, and generating electrical currents. The transistor was much smaller and consumed far less power than vacuum tubes, ushering in an era of inexpensive and miniaturized electronic devices. 1957 AD, spaceflight. In 1957, the Soviet Union launched the first artificial satellite, Sputnik 1. This 83.6 kilograms metal sphere shocked the world, marking the beginning of the space race between the Soviet Union and the United States, opening a new front in the Cold War. 1974 AD, personal computer. The first computers that emerged after World War II were enormous. But as technology advanced, particularly with the ability to place many transistors on a semiconductor chip, computers became smaller and more powerful. Eventually, they became small enough to be used in homes, marking the advent of personal computers. 1974 AD, the Internet. Vint Cerf and Robert Kahn proposed TCP/IP, which stands for Transmission Control Protocol, Internet Protocol. It describes how data is broken down into small pieces called packets, and how these packets are transmitted to the correct destination. TCP/IP became the foundation for how data is transmitted over the Internet. 2012 AD, CRISPR gene editing. American biochemist Jennifer Doudna and French microbiologist Emmanuel Charpentier developed CRISPR-Cas9, a method for editing genes by altering DNA sequences. Gene editing holds the potential to cure many diseases, but also opens up an ethical gray area regarding the creation of designer humans. 2017 AD, Artificial Intelligence. In 2017, the team behind the artificial intelligence program AlphaGo announced that it had become the best Go player in the world. Go is a game with very simple rules but a vast number of possible moves. In 2016, AlphaGo defeated the great Go player Lee Sedol with a score of 4-1 in a match. AlphaGo then played against itself and, through continuous improvement, was able to defeat the version that beat Lee Sedol with a score of 100-0. Through machine learning, AlphaGo became better at Go than any human ever could.